Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. My name is Zach. I host this podcast once a week, and today we are sitting down with AJ today. I'm excited to be talking to you because you've filmed some stuff with us before.
Oh, yeah.
So could you give us an idea of who you are?
Okay, cool. So I'm AJ. I've been instructing here for, I think I started around November. Originally from Arkansas, so, moving to Dallas and still trying to get used to this bigger city life. It's been like a year and a half now, and I'm, still not used to it. Still don't know where I'm going like half the time I'm here.
Yeah.
But,
it's really easy to feel that way.
I know, yeah, right. Don't ask for directions because I'm not gonna be able to tell you where to go. But yeah, so I've been here instructing since November. I did my training, started here in September of 23, and so I've been at Thrust for a year and a half now, roughly, and now made it onto the instructor side where I'm just building up hours to that magical 1,500. I'm around 650 right now, so I'm enjoying the grind. It's been fun.
It's a good time. I feel like you get a lot out of the instructor side of things.
Oh yeah. You learn a lot. I mean, they always say that you just learn so much instructing, and it's just crazy, sitting back like, man, I'm actually, still learning, but so it's been good.
And when did you start instructing? About how long?
Yeah, I started in October, November, sometime in that time frame.
So you've got to get your feet on the ground and
a little bit.
You're still figuring it out, obviously. Always, forever.
Yeah, definitely. Still got questions. So
I'm wondering if you did you always know that you wanted to fly, or was that something you had to figure out?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I had an opportunity of getting to fly like in a jet, and so the pilot, he let me come in the front and check out everything. Sweet. And I got to listen and see how he started up the engine, and I still remember the sound and the smell of the fuel burning and stuff, and then just seeing all the buttons and all the controls. And that's when I think I got the aviation bug, because I was like, oh man, this is awesome. And so I always wanted to fly after that. And so my buddy, he had Microsoft Flight Simulator. And so I'd always go over to his house, and that's what we did all the time. So that's kind of when I caught the aviation bug pretty early. So
it's always interesting to hear when people decided, because some people were like, oh, I didn't even know, and then I took Discovery Flight and it was game over.
There you go.
So that's pretty cool. Before we get rolling into it too much, I want to ask a question to let the viewers get a chance to know you a little bit, or the listeners on our streaming platforms. What's one thing that you would want people to know about you, so that you could feel like they understand you? Like, if someone knows this thing about you, then they kind of get an idea of who you are.
Yeah. Getting into aviation, that's something that I always, wanted to do, but also wanted to do some full-time ministry. And, with that just goes with, helping people, and that's, ties into instructing. And so I actually took a 2-year break from flying because I was trying to figure out if I was actually going to get into full-time ministry or not. And so making that decision again to get back into flying, I had to decide, am I really going to take out another loan to actually finish this thing or not? Or am I going to go, do something in ministry wise? So I took like a 2-year break to try to figure out what I was going to do. And when I wasn't flying, I was just still too busy, looking up in the air, watching planes go by. But also, still wanted to help people out in regards to ministry, and realized you can do both. So, got back into flight training, and here we are. So,
so you are doing both still?
Yeah, we're still trying to do both a little bit. So
like
it's working out. It's working out. So yeah, it's been good. So yeah, I wasn't sure at first if I was able to do both, but talked to a couple people, and they said, you're able to do that. And even when you get to the airlines, like, obviously you might start off kind of at the bottom tier, but you got to work your way up. But that goes with any job. But they said, as you work your way up in the industry and you become more senior, then you can kind of like pick your schedule. And so when I heard that, then I can, I thought, well, maybe I can, pick my schedule around the different kind of stuff that I may be doing in ministry. So.
I actually hear people say that sometimes I think a lot of people have chosen to start flight training and get into the career, and then know that they have an opportunity later to leverage their time in a way, like, because of the job. Being an airline pilot has a bit more opportunity, I think, when it comes to that in the long run, of course. So you say you took a break. Did you start flight training and then stop?
I did. So yeah, I went to school at Henderson State University, and that's where I got my private pilot license. Um, and so then after that, when you go to universities, I'm not hating on, the school I was at all, but it just kind of takes a little longer to get through the program,
Hmm.
and I realized I wasn't advancing as fast as I wanted, and I knew I was probably going to be there and I was going to have to stay there a little while longer than I wanted to.
Right.
And so then that's when I took, a break, and I was like, should I still do this aviation thing, or should I, get into something different? And so when I was trying to figure out and decide what I was going to do, when I wanted to get back into flying is when I started looking at, accelerated programs.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started looking around, and then that's when thrust popped up on my radar, and that's when I, started calling thrust.
Yeah.
So that's when I got back into it.
That's pretty cool that you would take the time to do that. I think it's hard to get started. It's actually almost hard to get started the second time because
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Did you feel some sort of almost like, is it too late, or I took so long of a break?
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt, because a lot of my buddies who I started with,
Mhm.
they after they got their private license, they actually went to an accelerated program, and a lot of them were almost flying for the airlines, and here I am, year 5 at school, went an extra year just because I switched my degree, and I'm like, man, do I really need to switch, or
Yeah.
is it too late? Because a lot of these other guys that I know, they got into it kind of early on,
Hmm.
and there's people who get into it right out of high school,
Right.
and so that's what I was trying to decide. Like, man, is it too late, or
Yeah.
am I still going to be able to do this, or find the right program? Because I already took out some money to go to school, and
Yeah.
again, I'm going to have to take out some more to finish my training.
Yeah.
But if you love something, it's hard to really step away from that, because you're still going to have that.
It's like an itch.
Exactly. Like, and I did a lot of itching.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
had to get back to it. I had to get back. So.
It's always. I think that's one thing I love talking to pilots. I think that's one of the reasons I like talking to the pilots so much, because I realize most of the time the reason you guys are here is because of the itch. Like, you can't let it
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And I think, what do you think it is that kind of makes you fight that itch a little bit? Like you said, there's a couple obstacles you want to know if
Yep, for
money
sure.
and things like that.
Yep.
Um, did it sound impractical? Like, did it not seem like it just seemed unsafe to do?
Yes, I mean, at times it did. Kind of, sometimes you would have the non-aviation friends, and they would kind of like, bro, you really want to do this thing? Like, man, if you get back into it, especially me looking at Dallas, they're like, bro, it's Dallas. Like, that's a super busy airspace. And I'm like, are you going to be able to handle all that?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there was definitely like, man, am I going to be able to handle this? I haven't flown for,
Yeah.
2 years. Right. And I
Yeah.
was away from it. And, I know thrust is an accelerated program. So I was asking myself, am I going to be able to handle that kind of training?
Hmm.
Um, but again, like, if you love something, it's hard to just step away from that,
Yeah.
because you love it, that's what you want to be doing too. And so, like, during the 2 years I wasn't flying, I was, wishing I was flying every day. And that's when I just had to get back into it.
It's
So,
something about that like infatuation with something that outlasts all the logic, all
yeah.
the fear and all the like doubt or whatever.
Oh,
At some
yeah.
point, it's like, yeah, that's enough to kind of hold you off, but it's really just so temporary how much it can hold you off. It's almost inevitable that you're gonna be like, have to like make some sort of decision about it, like a conscious decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was
For
never gonna
sure.
be. It's never gonna be no, probably
Yeah.
consciously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what changed, I guess, from when you were kind of nervous about picking it back up versus when you did pick it back up? Was it like a mindset shift? And how come some of those things that were keeping you from doing it didn't matter anymore?
Yeah. So, again, like, I was trying to figure out, like, am I going to do full-time ministry? And I grew up in a background. My dad, he was a pastor.
Hmm.
And then and again, that's something I've always wanted to do, but they were also kind of like pushing me like, hey, you should, do this flying thing. And so
So your
really,
family kind of pushed you.
yeah, they
Yeah.
did a little bit.
Okay.
I had some uncles, or had an uncle, and then my grandpa, he was a pilot too. So kind of had that,
Okay.
um, going on there. But really, that, like, the 2 years, like, getting back into it, then just taking that big leap of faith, did a lot of praying during that time. And
Mm-hmm.
I needed a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
because again, taking out like a big loan to get into flight training, and something that you stepped away from for 2 years,
Right.
it kind of, took a little bit of faith to get back into. So
Mm-hmm.
literally spent like 2 years just trying to pray, figured my way through it, and then just had a lot of answered prayer, and
Awesome.
just saw God move in a lot of really cool ways,
And you
open a
had
lot
to,
of doors.
yeah, and you had to choose faith in those situations.
For
So,
sure,
yeah.
yeah. And so it's been awesome, seeing the Lord provide, and just in ways of flight training, and
Mhm.
just being brought to a really good school, because I looked at a lot of schools all over, but just happened to end up here at Thrust,
Mhm.
and blessed to have the opportunity to instruct here. So it's just been a really cool journey. So
What made you choose to start at a university before?
yeah, I didn't know any better.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I didn't know any. I mean, at the time, they it was kind of pushed like you need to really get a degree, and so
By who?
just by people,
Society.
probably
Yeah.
people I should have been listening to,
Mhm.
but and so I used to live in North Dakota.
Mhm.
So they have UND there,
Mhm.
very well known flight school.
Mhm.
So when I moved back to Arkansas, I didn't know of any flight schools in Arkansas, so I just got online, aviation schools in Arkansas. Then Henderson State University popped up, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to Henderson State. Don't know where it's at, but we're gonna go check it out.
That's awesome.
So yeah, then ended up going there, and then that's where I got my private license, and then switched to aviation management,
Mm.
and then just so I could have a degree since I was already there for a
Right.
couple of years. So
Okay. Okay, gotcha. And but when you originally went, you did have like your main intention still was to fly.
yeah,
Okay.
yep. Because I went in originally to, I think the course was, or the degree was professional pilot,
Mhm.
or something. Aviation degree.
Yeah, they had some
Yeah,
sort of name on the
yeah,
aviation degree. I
yeah,
got you. They make those names up, I think.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but I wanted to ask, just so did you finish school? I can't remember what you
I
said a
did.
second. Yeah.
Yep.
So you finished
Finished
school
school.
and you got some sort of degree like in aviation,
Yep.
right?
Aviation management.
Okay,
So
aviation management.
yeah.
Gotcha. Do you feel like but do you feel like it's gonna play into anything you do?
I would like to say so,
Yeah,
but
you're not feeling like it would.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I took some management classes, but really, I still took a lot of aviation classes,
Mhm.
because you have to, just in a management degree.
Mhm.
Um, and so, a lot of stuff I did learn that maybe you weren't gonna learn really if you were just on the professional aviation side.
Right.
So I did
That's good.
learn, how to like manage some things, and
I'm sure it gave you a little bit of insight into the
it
industry and
did,
stuff,
yeah,
so that
just
it gets
for
your brain
sure,
warmed up to the
yeah,
world of
definitely.
aviation.
And I'm not, and if I had to redo it, I'm happy. I went to Henderson. Glad I got a degree from there,
Yeah.
because it definitely helped me out for sure.
Mhm.
Just building that foundation that I had,
Mhm.
in aviation,
Right.
and I never you know fell out of love in while I was there, because I enjoyed my
Mhm.
time there, and so I feel like that kind of laid the foundation for me to kind of grow on.
It's hard, you can't take anything you wouldn't want to take anything back necessarily. I say that though, because I mean, 4 years of life is a long time
Yeah.
or however many years you spent, but
Yep.
and you're gonna grow in that time anyways, and that helps. I think
For
aviation
sure.
is difficult. Actually, we're working on something right now, but we realize like a lot of people's parents play a large role in whether or not they are going to start flight training or what career path they're going to take in
Yep.
general, like if they're going to go
Yeah.
to college or what. And rightfully so, parents are going to be concerned. But
Mhm.
I think one concern that a lot of parents have for when they're 18, 19, 20, 21 year old
Yeah.
kid wants to
Mhm.
go to, I say kid, but you know what I mean,
Yeah.
young adult wants to go to flight training.
Yeah.
They worry about whether or not, hold on, I'm missing my point. There's a concern I wanted to bring up. You said, oh, there we go. They worry about whether or not they're ready to take on a bigger
Yeah.
responsibility. Are they mature enough? Can they make hard
For
decisions
sure.
when they're that young, when they've been making all their decisions for
Yeah.
them?
Yeah.
What do you think about that? What about someone who's like 18, 19, or 20 and wants to go into aviation? What kind of challenges could they face if they're just not used to being out in the world? And do you think they can overcome those challenges?
Yeah, that's a great question, because again, that's where I feel like college did help me kind of prepare for like the professional like
Hmm.
setting, and you don't really get that as much, like, just coming straight out of high school, which is fine. And so you quickly learn, like, especially if you come to an accelerated program, like what your priorities need to be. Because, in high school, maybe you can kind of slack off a little bit. But then once you kind of, leave and jump in like the big world, like what thrust is. I call it the big world because
Yeah.
you're getting there.
Well,
So
you're held responsible
for
for
sure,
everything. You're
yeah,
you're
and
you're the one who's gonna be.
yeah, and a lot of people, they move away from their original home, and so now,
Exactly.
their parents are going to be like, all right, you got to make sure to do your homework,
Yeah.
and so now it's up to you. Like, how bad do you really want to succeed? Like, how bad do you want to be successful in training? And so you really have to have like again, like some kind of form of just foundation of just like hard work and good work ethic, because if you don't have that getting into like an accelerated program, then that's when you can kind of like fall behind a little bit, and maybe slack off a little bit because nobody's like holding you really responsible, because you have to do that for yourself now, because
Yes.
you're out again by yourself, nobody's forcing you to study really, so it's up to you to get the knowledge that you need and to be successful at flight school. And we're nobody's really going to be holding your hand,
Exactly.
so
And I mean, you got to go through that in college a little bit, like on your own, right?
Yeah.
You still got to work some of those kinks out a little bit, and build those soft skills of focus and accountability and things like that. But on the flip side, there's two sides to that, though. It sounds like, because I think that personally, like me going to a university, I'm less likely to develop those skills than I am in an environment like thrust or some sort of accelerated flight program, because it's more engaging to me. I can what's the word? I can attach myself more to it more easily.
Yeah.
And also it's challenging. Like you can't excuse my language, you can't half-ass aviation.
Oh no,
I mean, there's no
people try, but they
that's what I'm saying.
They'll find out real quick.
Yeah, and so interestingly enough, like I think you can. I think some people can manage to half-ass their way through college, but probably not through aviation.
Yeah.
But yet those same people, like some people, would probably do better actually in like some sort of aviation
I
environment.
think so. Yeah, because at college, especially if you're at a liberal arts school, you're gonna have to take some classes that you don't want to be in. I remember I was, I think, taking like non-Western leisure and music or something, and I was like,
sorry, excuse me.
I was like, man, me personally, this isn't my thing. Nobody wants me singing in the first place, and me to try to like understand like all like where all these songs like were coming from.
This wasn't your thing.
I didn't take that too serious, know.
Yeah, and how could you? I mean, it doesn't. Yeah.
And I really didn't love the class, but again, if you do something that you love, you're going to put in the work to try to be successful at it. So if you have somebody who loves aviation, then I feel like it's going to be easier for them to put in the effort because they actually enjoy what they're doing.
And I also think it's easier to accept, to not accept, like, excuse me. I think it's also a little easier to allow yourself to feel accountable because you care.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, like I'm okay with making excuses about things I don't really care about.
Yeah, for
but if I really want to fly and I'm doing bad at it, no one's gonna be harder on me about it than I am.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna be true. And I think that's what kind of makes it almost a little easier to develop some of those skills for some people. For me, it would be I'm that way. I'm like all the way or none the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Because I used to play basketball too, and I wanted to be good at basketball, and I wasn't going to be good at basketball just by showing up on game day, and not
even
putting
just
in
showing
any
up to
work.
Practice, yeah.
Right? You had to put in a little bit of work, put in a little bit of, sweat after hours, working on your craft. And it's the same thing in aviation. If you want to be, good at what you do, you're going to have to put in the work, and you're going to have to put in that time studying when nobody's, watching you. And but you enjoy it, you enjoy the grind. And if you have that goal in mind, then that's what you're working for. And that's what kind of kept me motivated when I was going through training.
I like the comparison, and it's a comparison we've made, like other people have made too. Do you think that kind of how do you feel about that? Because you said working on your craft. Don't you feel like it's kind of like something you can't say about every industry or every career path?
Yeah.
Or maybe not everyone comes across needing to be able to say.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's maybe different industries that you can just check mark some boxes, and if like, hey, if you show up on time and you complete this work that I hand out, then you're good to go. But aviation is something that you have to work for. You can't just show up to a flight thinking that like, oh yeah, I got this already locked in. no, you have to take the time beforehand to sit down, study the maneuver guide,
Yeah.
understand, what you're going to be doing in the training flight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to hate on like any other careers, but
Right.
sometimes you can just show up just to show up and be fine, but you can't do that, when it
Well,
comes to flying.
I just think it takes a slightly. I think it's a little bit of an exceptional thing to be able to say working on my craft, and I think that to paint it like flying as a craft sounds appropriate.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
think
so
so.
that's good. Well, nonetheless, thanks for sharing those things. I want to ask you a few more
All
questions.
right.
So you're at this point where you kind of get through the end of college trying to figure out what you're gonna do,
Yep.
and then you're like, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start
We're
again.
gonna do it.
There's a lot of hard decisions that go into that.
There are, yeah.
Um, so you decided by the time you graduated that you were gonna start flight training again, or
Yeah,
did you start?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I graduated, and then that's when I was still a little bit unsure. I interned at a church for 2 summers, and by the last summer, I still wasn't 100% sure if I was going to do that or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so yeah, I was still trying to decide, and and then that's when Nathan from Thrust,
Okay.
yeah, I had put something in like while I was in college, just because I
Filled
was,
out a form or
yeah, I
something.
filled out a form, and
Uh-huh.
so he kind of kept in touch a little bit.
How did he?
Uh,
Sorry, if you don't mind,
yeah,
I
no,
want to
no.
know too. Do you, what kind of communication did he have with you, and what did that kind of look like?
So yeah,
And
so
this isn't a plug for Thrust as much
no,
as I am curious about how
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah, yeah.
talk to someone about this.
Well,
Yeah.
I called different flight schools,
Mhm.
and so just my experience with Nathan was, different,
Mhm.
because I'm not going to list any names of flight schools I tried calling, but I would call them, and I was just trying to figure out what the program was about,
Yeah.
and they were just kind of very short and didn't really answer my questions.
Mm,
And so when I called Nathan for the first time, it was like almost, I feel like a 30-minute phone call. I was just,
wow.
had so many questions, obviously about the program, about what it really looks like, and he stayed on the phone the entire time, and was very helpful through the process. Even if I didn't come to Thrust, he was
Mm,
giving me a lot of good like insight on what really an accelerated program was about.
mhm.
So just kind of how he handled it like professionally, and just like he just wanted to help. Like again,
Right.
he didn't care like if I went somewhere else. Like obviously he wanted me to come to Thrust, but
Right.
he was really just trying to help me out and just make the best decision for myself. So
Right. Right. I like that because it's not always easy to call somewhere and get like what feels like help rather
yeah,
than it
yeah,
feel because you can tell when someone wants something from you and then it's like now I don't
yeah,
trust you as much.
yeah,
So we work on things like that over here too. We're
hmm,
trying to still keep that alive because it's
for
important,
sure.
especially as we grow. I don't want to
Yep,
lose
yep.
that. But you said so you guys stayed in contact. You stayed on the phone, and that kind of helped get the ball rolling a little bit.
It did.
And so, what was the first step you took after talking with Nathan a couple times?
Yeah, and I will say I probably ghosted him for a little bit,
Yeah,
but I got back into it
it's
because
appropriate. It's
yeah, well,
okay.
he didn't leave me alone, which was good, right? He
Okay.
just wanted to stay in touch, which
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that he did that,
Yeah.
because who knows?
'Cause you didn't feel bothered by it though, like a
Not
salesman or
really.
something.
I was in college, like this isn't my thing, but maybe like a couple months later, he reached back out again, and that's
Through
kind of when.
text or call or
Yeah, I
email?
think he called me,
Okay.
and
Okay. Okay.
so I didn't. I just answered it, and so when we had the talk again,
Mhm.
then that's when it kind of got on my mind again
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
start thinking about it,
Okay.
and so yeah, the first step after that was I scheduled a tour. I was in Bryant, Arkansas, and so I wasn't too far away,
Okay.
and so made the trip out, checked
Yeah.
the school out, and it
Too
was great.
exciting.
Yeah, I got into plane, saw it had AC because I toured it during the middle of summer. I was like, well, this is nice. Not many people have AC,
Uh
so
huh.
so yeah, check the program out.
And you were already flying without AC, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I know the other side to it.
Yeah. I didn't
So
know that when I started working in aviation that most general aviation planes just didn't have AC,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Some of these people who just come to Thrust, like they don't know the other side to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you've done that.
yeah.
But, so you came in and took a tour, you got in, and you're like, "Oh, man, I wanna do this." How long did it take before you decided that, you wanted to move forward?
That day after, again, I kind of was like praying through this whole process. So, like, crazy story, I went out to eat afterwards,
Mhm.
and I'm still trying to figure out like if this is the right place for me. And I went out to eat at some random restaurant with some my friend's family because he lived nearby, so I was just gonna go visit him. And we're at some random restaurant, and a group of people just walk outside, and my friend's family, they start talking, and I'm like, who are these people? Like, they're like, oh my gosh, we haven't seen these people in so long, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know these people, but then
Bystander.
yeah, bystander. That's what it felt like. And
Yeah.
so then they eventually like brought me up and started introducing me to the group there, and
That they just happen to run into.
yeah, that they just happened randomly ran into just at some random restaurant. And so I went up, introduced myself, like, I'm AJ, looking to get back into flight training. And
You mentioned that.
yeah, mentioned that. And then the guy I was talking to, he was like, oh, I'm a captain, or I'm a pilot for Delta. And he's like, yeah, I got all my training done at Henderson State University. I was like, no way. Like, that's where I was at.
Yeah, dude.
And so, we started talking, and yeah, we started talking, connecting, like, hey, did this person still there? And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. And so after we were talking, his wife was there listening, and she was like, AJ, where are you from originally? I'm like, thinking in my head, like, small town Arkansas, you're not gonna know.
Yeah.
And so I eventually was like, I'm from Paragould, Arkansas. Like, you're not gonna know where that is. And she kind of looked at me, and her eyes got real big, and she walked over and like grabbed my hands, and she's like, oh my gosh, like, you don't understand, like, that's where we're from, like, that's where we grew up.
What?
And I'm like, that's insane. Like, and so we started connecting again with like
Yeah.
different people that we knew. And so
The rabbit hole continued.
yeah, then to add on to the story, so there was some other people that were in the group that was talking to my friend's dad. They eventually came over because they were like, hey, like, where is your son? He's in flight training somewhere. Where's he at flight training at? And she was trying to think, and she was like, I think he's at thrust flight. And I'm like, all right, you guys don't understand what's happening right now.
Wait, this is shortly after you did the tour here?
This was the day after, a couple hours after I got done touring thrust.
So the same day.
Same day. And so again, I prayed a lot for this, and then my mom called before I went and toured, and she's like, I'm just praying that everything will work out, and that you would just be able to figure out if this was worth getting back into. So go to the restaurant, end up meeting all these people, and then
from the same school
you
just toured,
from the same town. Then
Yeah.
then met the mom of somebody who was actively in the program, and she was talking very highly about it. And so after that, I was like, well, I guess I'm packing my bags, moving to Dallas, and going to thrust. So
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a pretty crazy one. There's a lot of things that align there. So I don't think everyone needs to be any sort of religious to understand that sometimes you're just looking for something to push you
for sure
in a direction to understand like kind of what you want for yourself. Because at some point when you continue to want something, it's just gonna take a nudge.
Yeah.
And what is that nudge gonna look like?
Exactly.
I would react the same way. I'd be like, well, man, I just got engulfed in this somehow, and I'm just gonna listen to it.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, I will ask. So you probably walk away from that thinking like, I guess I'm gonna do this, right?
Yeah.
And so what do? You call Nathan and you say, what's my next step, or what's the next step?
Yep. So then that's when then that's when I started looking at taking out that big scary loan, right?
Okay, gotcha. And what does it look like to start looking at that? Like, do you Google it? How do you know about it? Did Nathan tell you?
Yeah. So they kind of walked me through it a little bit, and so started looking at it, and then when I looked at it, when I saw that number, honestly, I was like, oh wow, maybe I shouldn't do this, right? But I called some buddies who were at the airlines too as well during that time. And, eventually when you make it to the airlines, and I've talked to a lot of other pilots too, that they said you don't really have any problems, paying that off. And so
getting there is a little hard.
Yeah, getting there is hard.
Yeah.
And, it was hard. I saw how much I was going to have to pay a month.
Yeah.
And I was like, I heard
you're not going to be in the airlines by the time you have to pay that.
Exactly, right?
So it's like,
yeah. When I got the first email about like, my statement and stuff, and I saw that, I showed my parents, and they're like, man, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this. And I was like, you're probably right. I don't know. But that's when, I started calling some buddies and talked to other pilots. And because I knew, as a CFI, you're not making a ton of money.
Right. Right.
And so, so what I did was I just was able to defer my loan again. And so I'm like in the deferment phase right now. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of helped out. And what you can also do is you can also look at different loan providers because, sometimes I've heard of people having like 15% interest,
Mm-hmm.
but then you can also look at different maybe loan providers that may have a lower interest rate around like maybe a 3, 4. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can look to consolidate maybe with a
Reality.
different,
Yeah.
yeah, and kind of get that payment down. So I'm kind of in the middle of doing that too. So
Mm-hmm.
there are ways that you can kind of work with that,
Mm-hmm.
but just know that just from talking to other pilots, people who are at the airlines right now, that when you get there
Mm-hmm.
is when you can kind of start just paying that off. Just
Right.
and it doesn't become as bad. It's just kind of working your way to that point. But that's where like you got to realize when you're in school, like I can't slack off because
I mean, this is your life. I mean, it's
yeah,
not. That's a big number.
it is.
It is a big number, and I think there's a lot of talk about there. Like, it's not worth it. I'm like, well, that's relative because like when you have that itch, it keeps coming back, and then you see the number. It's almost enough to say, I'm not going to scratch the itch, but it wasn't enough to
Yeah,
stop you.
I mean and I kind of looked at it like this, like you have a lot of people who want to become doctors, right? And
Right.
so they go to school, take out, a lot of money to do that, but then once they become doctors after cuz they're going to school for another 8+ years, right?
Yeah.
And so but once they get there and once, they did all the schooling and stuff, they're able to pay it back. And so I kind of looked at it kind of like that a little bit
Hmm.
because I knew I was going to have to take out, a lot of money to come to flight school.
Right.
But I realized that, once I do get to the airlines, then, I'll just start paying
Yeah.
it off then.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, one or two more quick questions about that because you spoke on the deferment period, at least with the loan you got. And we work with Sally Mae
yep,
often,
yep,
and I know there's other ways to
hmm,
finagle things or whatever. But we were with Sally Mae, and now we're working with Climb Credit too. I think
okay,
that gives a little bit more opportunity to some people for some
hmm,
things. I don't know
yeah,
much about it, but um, that deferment period, everyone gets about a 6 month deferment period, I think,
yeah,
automatically, right?
yep,
After you finish the program or something like that, or after
hmm,
the date that's designated for you to finish the
yeah.
program. And then, what did you have to do to get it deferred a little longer? And is there like what's kind of limitations there or something?
Yeah, so there's another form
Yeah.
that you can go and fill out. And I actually, yeah, just got done filling the form out. So you just submit another form and
Hmm.
send it in. And sometimes you got to realize too that I've heard of some people that they didn't
Didn't get approved.
get it approved.
Hmm.
But then that's when you can just look at different options, maybe with
Yeah.
going with somebody who may just have a little bit lower of an interest rate, and then refinancing with them.
Hmm.
And so if that does happen, then that's just what I'm going to have to do. But yeah, so there is another deferment form that you
Hmm.
can get that will just add an additional 6 months to yeah where you're at.
I'm sure there's a big number for when your payments start. And I mean, I've seen numbers that range from like $1,100 to like $2,100 and things like that. And that's kind of scary
It
because
is.
that's like people's rent that they have. You know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah.
when you see a number that looks something like that, um, what's your strategy for paying it before you get to the airlines? And if you're still figuring it out, that's fine. But and how come that didn't stop you?
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
still trying to figure it out
yeah,
because I saw that number and I was like, oof,
yeah, yeah.
So really it goes back to just just good habits and not trying to go out and spend a whole bunch of money
Right.
that you really don't have quite a bit. And it's been tough because I have a lot of friends who have started their careers who do have that that good income finally coming in.
Hmm.
And so being like on the other side, maybe when you're still time building,
Hmm.
and you just have to be smart with your money. You just don't want to go out and just spend it on like everything that's out there, right? You just have
Exactly.
to put a little bit towards saving if you can, and just try to put more towards paying off the bill there. So
Exactly.
you just have to be smart. And I'm definitely still learning, definitely still trying to figure out
Hmm.
how I can just best save, best spend my money, and
Right.
just try to figure out how to pay off the loan that I took out.
Yeah.
So
Well, I appreciate you for sharing that.
yeah,
Just to give a little bit of things to the listeners and viewers, um, every flight program is going to have its own price. I will say Thrust, I know, is pretty expensive, but uh, as you can hear, like we have a lot of things going for us. Call around if you're interested in flying still. See what the options are. Know what they offer. Know what helps you. We have a lot of guidance here. People who get through our program are much more likely to succeed. If there's someone who needs a little bit of guidance, we have ground courses and primary CFIs and
Yep.
new planes and scheduling programs. You know what your schedule is all the time. It's not, we have new planes, all that good stuff.
Yeah,
For the listeners and the viewers, I'm sure that you got a stipend that helped you at least get through the program so you could, cover living expenses
Yep.
because you can't really work during the program. You're a
Mm-hmm.
full-time student. But now that you're a CFI, what's your like lifestyle kind of like though? Do you have roommates? Are you living at home? You're on your own?
Yeah.
And are you, how much are you
Mm-hmm.
flying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I do have a roommate, thankfully, that helped split the cost. He actually went through the program too. So we're both
Okay.
flight instructors now.
Okay.
And so, we both split the bill because, Dallas apartments, it's just Dallas. So things are maybe going to be a little higher.
Yeah.
And so, I went out, found a roommate because I realized that, if I was just doing it on my own, I was going to have rent by myself to pay plus the loan.
Yeah.
So
And
best
hopefully
thing,
not a car. No, or
yeah,
something
not a
like
car. It's paid off.
Nice.
Little bitty Mazda 2012 still
Nice.
hanging on a little bit, but
Yeah.
it gets me to point A to point B. That's all
Yes,
that matters.
sir.
But yeah, um, so if I would recommend that just try it for anybody, maybe getting into the CFI role.
Mhm.
Try to get a roommate because it helps out. I've even heard of some people getting like a 2 bed, 2 bath, and
Mhm.
they're putting 4 guys in there,
Yeah.
and it just helps with rent.
The hustle.
The
Yeah.
hustle, the grind. Yeah. But I just have one roommate right now, and so that helps out with
Mhm.
paying rent and stuff for
Mhm.
sure. So
Mhm.
then still trying to figure out ways to be smart with the money. So
Exactly. And you spend a lot of time here at Thrust, so you probably don't have as much opportunity to spend your money if you're working so much. 'Cause I know
yeah,
you're here a lot.
yeah.
Can you explain a little bit to me about how much time you spend at Thrust
Yeah, so
as a CFI, of course?
yeah, as a CFI, so I work 5 days a week, and sometimes too, just depending on where my students are at,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they have a stage check
Mm-hmm.
scheduled, and maybe they want a refresher flight. So I'll come in on my off day, maybe do a ground lesson to make sure they're just refreshed and
Mm-hmm.
feeling good. And so really, I don't want to say like I have 2 days off because sometimes I have stuff come up like this past weekend for me is Tuesday, Wednesday. I had a lot of stuff going on, but
Mm-hmm.
usually if I don't have, a whole lot going on, like I'll still come up on my days off to, fly a little extra,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, do a couple grounds or just kind of help out with my students and
Yeah.
whatever they need just to kind of move them on through the program. So
Yeah, that's
yeah, I feel
great.
like I could be up here, every day. I feel
Yeah.
like so
Yes.
always something going
It's not
on.
hard to be up here
Yeah,
every day.
yeah.
Gotcha. You kind of eat, sleep, and
Yep,
breathe it a
yep.
little bit. That's what it sounds like. A lot of the things you're saying, it makes it sound difficult. I always imagine college as difficult myself personally because you're still like having to grind, and
Yeah.
it's always very glorious. You don't always
Yeah,
have a lot
yeah.
of money and things.
Yeah.
So I don't imagine it too much different. It just seems like there's a lot more. It's a lot of pressure here for
Mhm.
a lot of reasons. A lot of money
Yeah.
too. Why do you still want to do it? It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I
I
mean, it's
guess.
definitely hard, but kind of as I said earlier, I still have that end goal of trying to get to the airlines,
Right.
and so that's that's what's kind of helped keeping me motivated
Yeah.
through the times that might be tough and a little challenging is just knowing that if you just keep going, keep working, perfecting your craft as we talked about,
Mm.
then one day you're going to be able to make it to wherever your dream airline might be or your dream job.
Mm.
And so if you kind of keep that in the back of your mind while going through like the hardships of
Mhm.
being a CFI, not making that
Mhm.
much money, like if you
Mhm.
use that to kind of just motivate you to get to your dream that you always wanted, maybe since you were a kid, that's helps through the struggle.
That
And
makes sense.
yeah.
You have faith in the process. Do you? Uh, it kind of have to be a dreamer
Yeah.
to kind of do it, right?
Yep.
Did you feel like if you thought about it purely logical, do you think you would still do it?
I mean, yeah, because if I thought about it like logically, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me to get back into it after not flying for 2 years and then seeing that loan again. But yeah, you got to be a dreamer, like they always say, chase your dreams. And so again, if you have that and you really put your mind to do whatever you want to do, then you can accomplish it. And not just flying, or that's just whatever you want to do in life, you can just go out and do it. So
I think a lot of people want to have everything kind of figured out before they start something.
yep.
And I think the dreamers kind of like allow themselves to figure it out as they
Yeah,
go. And I
yeah.
think that's where you kind of reach uncharted territory sometimes.
For sure.
And it's only uncharted because of it's a dreamer thing. But
Yeah.
I guess I only asked that because I see a lot of conversations online and people talk about it's not worth it or it doesn't make sense. But you can't really have that conversation with someone who has like a goal that feels somewhat like a dream. So earlier when you were saying something about maybe friends around you that are like, "Are you sure? Are
Yeah.
you don't? Yeah, are
Yep.
you sure about that?" Like, did it feel kind of like it's difficult to have people understand the vision? Even like it's hard because you almost feel like you have to be able to justify it logically, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
people like that, what do you say? What do you say to people who maybe don't understand the decision you're making?
Yeah, so it was funny because
Sorry,
again,
that was a long-winded
no,
question.
no, no, yeah. So it's funny because I'm from a small town, Arkansas, and when I kept floating the idea of going to Dallas to finish flight training, everyone's like, "Man, you're not going to Dallas. Like, you're not doing that." And so yeah, I kind of had that in the back of my head, like,
Yeah,
yeah, moving to Dallas, that alone sounds crazy from growing up in the town that I was in,
yeah,
and but again, this is something that I had a passion for ever since I was a kid. So, I wasn't gonna let somebody say like, "Bro, this is crazy," like change what I've always wanted to do ever since I
yeah,
was a kid. So, again, I had like
mhm,
this passion as a
yeah,
kid, and I want to achieve it, right?
yeah.
I
I agree.
I want to fly one day
Yeah,
for the airlines, and so I'm not gonna let anybody come in and say that, "Oh,
mhm,
this sounds crazy. You shouldn't do this."
mhm.
Like, no, this is something I want to do, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to do it.
Yeah, I
So,
always say it's better to fail at something you really want to do than to fail at something you really don't want to do.
yeah, and
So,
yeah, you do see the comments online about, man,
mhm,
going to an accelerated program, that's just way too much money. Like, why would you do that right now? Like the airlines aren't even hiring that much right now anyway, and it's kind of slowed down a little bit. Like, why
yeah,
would you get into it right now?
right.
But that just goes back to, like, if you have a passion for something, just go out and do it, because there's going to be doors maybe that you don't know of that are going to open up in the future
Mhm.
that might be there for you to step into something that you've always dreamed of. And so, and a lot of people too get into aviation for the wrong reasons, like, oh, I'm in it for the money.
Yeah,
But you
which
do
is you can
you
get a lot.
do. Yeah, you do. But if
Yeah.
that's like your main reason to get into aviation, there's a lot of other different careers where you can go and make a lot of money. So you really have to kind of have that passion behind flying and enjoy and love flying. Because
Mhm,
if you don't have it, then that's where I feel like you could kind of get burnt out a little
mhm,
bit.
mhm.
But
And getting a lot of money is still kind of like a logical answer, and
yeah,
that doesn't really solve the issue that people find themselves in, like the position they find themselves in as a CFI. I
yep,
mean, you got to be willing to go through that stage, and
exactly.
I just to me, I'm like, there's you're just gonna have to really want it to go through it.
Yeah, because I mean,
Um,
when I was looking at aviation and the airline industry when I first started out, like a couple years ago, they were I think regional pilots, they were making like 40, 50,
yeah,
and that wasn't a lot.
yeah,
So I was never in it for the money. The money's just
right,
extra little bonus a little bit.
right,
I was just in it for the enjoyment of being able to fly an airplane.
yeah,
And so if you have
with the vision of being able to do it for a living, right?
exactly, right, and
Right.
so if you have the passion behind it, then it the times that it's going to be hard, the time that you're not making as much money, it's still going to drive you because you love what you do. And
Yeah,
so that's what it's kind of been for me. They
yeah,
helped me get through even not making as much money. And that's
right.
I'm just still keeping my eye on of getting to the airlines one day.
All right,
So
all right. Well, um, you say you have some buddies in the airlines, and you talked to a couple of them.
hmm
Um, when you talk to some of your buddies in the airlines, how long did it kind of take for them to, get their first job? It's probably just like a first officer at a regional,
yep.
and then they kind of everyone wants to kind of continue to move up because that's what the
hmm
airlines want to. They want to train you up. Uh, how long did it kind of take for them to start at a first officer and kind of continue to move on in their career?
As far as I know, I think a lot of them still are first officers.
Okay.
They've been, I think, yeah, just with their whoever they're flying for, just for a couple years now, maybe 2-3 years.
Hmm.
But I know one day that they're right there probably of. I know a lot of them are probably captains. I think a lot of them are
Yeah.
captains, and so that probably maybe took 2 years
Okay.
to get there. But I think one
Sorry, I
day.
assumed. I couldn't remember what you said earlier.
No,
So,
no, no.
but,
Yeah, I feel like they might not want to be at the regional airlines forever, but
mhm,
I feel like they're just right there,
mhm.
just getting maybe to like a legacy airline, maybe like American, Delta, Southwest, or United, somebody. So,
Right.
yeah.
No, I mean, I'm gonna ask that one more time in a different way too, just by saying, like, is there like sort of an expectation for how long someone's going to spend as a CFI, how so long someone's gonna spend as a first officer, and so on?
Yeah, so for me, some people can get it done really quick. I just kind of like I want to be done around a year as a CFI, but I put like a 2 year like that's I kind of gave myself some room to work with.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't want to, be stuck in the same position,
Hmm.
instructing just for 2 years. I mean, if I do, that's fine. That's great because I love what I do. But, I do want to get to the airlines. And
Hmm.
so I would say maybe if you're like an instructor, maybe a year and a half.
Hmm.
And then once you get to the regional airlines, you might, be with them for 2 years, 3 years, just maybe depending on the contract that you sign to as
And where the
well.
industry's at and
Yeah, where the
everything.
industry's at. Yeah, and just maybe, yeah, even figuring out like where you want to go to next, and
Yeah. Hmm.
maybe you want to go fly
Is there
corporate.
like a general expectation for how much someone's wanting to make as a first officer?
Yeah, so it definitely went up a little bit. That's why I feel like a lot more people got interested in aviation because
Uh,
they saw that and they're like, wow, that's what you make starting out.
mhm.
And I think maybe it's somewhere 80, 90, maybe somewhere in that
That's what I've seen
range.
too. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And so honestly, man, if I started making that right now, like that's a lot of money to me,
Yeah.
compared to what I'm making now.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's a great, starting spot.
Yeah.
And then, you just build up in seniority
Yeah.
and that number just keeps going up and up.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Okay. Okay. Do you have a piece of advice for anyone who's like struggling with how not super logical the decision is to start flight training, even though they want to?
yeah, so man, I would say that if you have a passion for it and this is something maybe you've wanted to do since you were a kid, just I would say just do it. I was talking to a pilot and I was trying to figure out, should I get back into aviation? And he just said, shut up and take out a loan.
Yep.
And I guess that's what I did. I stopped making excuses and I, you know, put one foot forward and started just moving and doing what I
Yeah.
needed to do to get into flight school and I would say if you have a passion and dream for it, just go
Hmm.
out and just figure out a way to do it. Maybe it's not at an accelerated program, maybe it's at a small part 61, maybe where you can fly maybe once a week if that might be an option. Maybe you
Right.
don't want to take out that massive loan,
Yeah.
but you could maybe fly once a week. It could take a little longer,
Yeah.
and
And there's some difficulties that come with either side,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I would say again, yeah, if you have the passion for it and you've been dreaming of doing it, just go out and do it.
Yeah.
That's what a pilot told me. I'm glad I did that because I know it's paid off so far. I've enjoyed every second of it. I've enjoyed the
Hmm.
getting up at 4 a.m. It sounds crazy, but it's like cool, like I get to go fly an airplane right now.
Yeah.
Everybody else is asleep and I'm up here flying, so
Yeah. That's awesome. That's
yeah,
great to hear. Well, I appreciate you for sharing some of your journey
yeah.
with us. I think there's a lot of good things in there. It's nice to hear that you have faith in your process and your faith has helped
For
you
sure.
continue
Yeah,
on and things like that. And I'll be excited to kind of see how you progress. I
definitely.
remember when I first started working here, you were still in a red shirt.
I was walking around in the red shirt.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you were still figuring it out, but now you're a CFI and you're thinking about what the next steps are. So we'll have to have
Yeah.
you on once more once you start thinking about where you might end up going.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Just to get an update,
For sure.
it'll be
Yeah, would
cool.
love to come back and
Yeah.
and have a just share what's been going on. So
Absolutely. Okay, well, if you guys are still listening and you haven't clicked out yet, I'm assuming you enjoyed this podcast. podcast, please give us a like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And I think more people should hear stories like AJ has to share. It's been really great talking to you, AJ.
Sure.
So if you guys do subscribe, I'll see you on the next episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say.